What we are talking about are impactful meetings, because impactful meetings are the lifeblood of every relationship, every team, every organization, is when we come together and in impactful ways. We come together with a purpose to align, to communicate, to share the vision, and to help us move things forward. Those are the type of meetings that we're talking about today. So impactful meetings that are surrounded and are all about engaging the minds and hearts of our people. Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat podcast. Wherever you are and however you are coming to the podcast today, welcome back. If you are a loyal, longtime listener to the podcast, welcome back, and thank you so much for being a part of this from the very beginning of this journey or wherever you jumped on. If you are new to the podcast, then thank you so much for being a part of this. Welcome. And I hope when you get a chance, you'll go back and listen to some of the previous seasons, different podcasts, great interviews, and wonderful little micro pods that hopefully meet you where you are and help get your mind and your heart going. So, as always, this is a place, a space in your day, in your week, in your month for you to step back, to think, to hopefully be filled with positive mojo, positive vibes, and I'm more convinced of this than ever that authentic leadership and compelling cultures are needed more than ever in the world that we live in today, especially over all that has happened in the world over the last year and a half. Authentic leadership and compelling cultures are critical right now. So teams and organizations and leaders that are actively engaging their mind and heart, and certainly engaging that with the people on their team, are the ones that are helping to navigate their way through all of this more gracefully. So if you do me a favor right now, if you are willing to stop, take one moment and rate this podcast. 5 stars, of course. If you're willing to leave a positive review on whatever platform that you are listening to this, if you're think about others that you are willing to invite and share to be a part of this podcast, all of those ways are the ways in which the algorithms work and help us amplify these messages further out into the world. So if you're willing to take a moment to do those things, I greatly appreciate it. I hate the fact that I have to ask for that and that do that, but hopefully you understand and realize that that's how the algorithms work. And so thank you for anybody who takes the time to rate, review, share this with the people in your life. Super excited to talk about today's topic. Today we're talking about impactful meetings. So if all of a sudden the word meeting jumped up in, you heard this, let me make sure that we're clear about this. We're not talking about purposeless meetings. We're not talking about what has become an epidemic in so many teams and organizations, which is meeting people to death, which means we schedule all these meetings back to back meetings that you're starting to wonder when you get into them, what is the purpose of this meeting? We're having a meeting just to gather to plan our next meeting. That kind of epidemic of just meeting for the sake of meeting is not what we're talking about in today's podcast. What we are talking about are impactful meetings, because impactful meetings are the lifeblood of every relationship, every team, every organization, is when we come together and in impactful ways. We come together with a purpose to align, to communicate, to share the vision, and to help us move things forward. Those are the type of meetings that we're talking about today. So impactful meetings that are surrounded and are all about engaging the minds and hearts of our people. And so If you listen to my most recent podcast, or one of my most recent podcasts about remote work, Chris Dyer's new book, Remote Work, then you know that leaders, teams, and organizations are going to have a tremendous opportunity in the coming years to be creative, thoughtful, and intentional about how they engage the minds and hearts of their people. That in the environment that we're in right now, leaders, teams, and organizations are going to have to be thoughtful and creative and intentional about how is it that we are engaging the minds and hearts of people. Because the reality is all this transition to this new future of work, all the talk right now is about the future of work and what does the workplace, physical space look like, and how do we transition with remote workers and hybrid, and how then do we continue to raise the bar on performance and effectiveness, but at the same time not be isolated and disconnected. So all of us are going to be navigating our way through this new world of how we work together. And you'll hear me say this over and over again, that I still believe that in-person meetings, it doesn't mean we're going to have to be in person together all the time, but there's always going to be a need, and in-person meetings are going to be critical. There is still going to be a power in congregating. So the best leaders, the best teams, the best organizations are going to be creative about when is it that we need to gather our people? When do we need to be in the same physical space with one another? It may not be as frequently as it was in the past, because we're going to embrace hybrid and remote working, but there still are going to be times where we need to get everyone in the same space to make sure that we go that extra effort to have that energy and that alignment that comes from the power in congregating together. We also know that remote work is going to continue. And for many people, they've found that this is actually a very effective and productive way that they work. For other people, they've found it to be miserable, and they really need to be back in a physical office to be their most effective self. But there are people, and certainly teams and organizations are realizing that there are ways to do remote work and be as productive and effective and also cater to people's needs in really unique ways. But the reality is with remote working is when, especially when the pandemic began and we started to have all these meetings on Zoom and Teams and Skype and GoToMeeting and all of the platforms that are out there, that we started to realize that people need a lot of education and practice having effective, impactful meetings. Again, because the tendency that people started to run into, and I saw this with many of the different teams and organizations that I support, and certainly companies all over the globe that I have done virtual presentations for, keynotes, and also facilitated discussions across teams all around the world during these times. What I've noticed is when everything started, we started to fall into a pattern where just because we could meet with people and we could stack up virtual meetings without travel time, many teams were stacking them up one virtual meeting after the next all day long, which was burning people out, which was giving screen fatigue, and also the nature of the meetings themselves was a lot of just reporting out, a lot of just sharing, spreadsheets and financials, and a lot of people just listening. And all of a sudden we got down the road and started to get the feedback from people that people were getting fatigue, screen fatigue, and meeting fatigue. And the reality is, because in this remote working environment, we need to raise the bar on how we do these meetings. We can't just have these virtual meetings where it's purely only reporting out and just spreadsheets, death by PowerPoint, and you're just supposed to sit in some remote space behind a computer and listen. That is not going to be sustainable. That's not going to engage the minds and hearts of our people. So if you are in a remote workforce, or you are on a remote team, or you are leading remote people, we need to raise the bar on how we do effective remote meetings. And I can tell you firsthand that I've been a part of, since this pandemic began, many, many, many virtual meetings that were highly productive, highly effective, highly engaging, that engaging the minds and hearts and having conversations that are the currency for change within teams and organizations that got people out of that traditional and unfortunate kind of remote meeting behaviors. So we need to raise the bar on how we do these meetings virtually and not just update people to death and not report outs, but we need to actually build in time to connect with the people that are on the call with us, to engage with them, to have conversations that actually engage their mind and heart, and make sure that we are aligning each other in the mission, the vision, the values, the strategy that we're a part of. So, I've had many effective meetings, know they can be done, but we know that in the remote space that is going to be an area that that we need to improve within our teams and organizations. And then we also know that there are going to be hybrid meetings. Already, I've been a part of many of these as well, where already as there's been this transition of people back to the office space and back to work, we already are seeing that, again, there are going to be people that remain remote and are choosing to be remote, and again are productive and effective remote. And then there are going to be people that are in the office and are productive and effective in the office. And so we need to be able to leverage technology to make sure that we have effective and impactful hybrid meetings, where we have the chance to widen the circle of that in-person experience. We will have people in a room, those that are able to physically be in the same space, but also we're able to widen the circle to have people physically in the same space, but then also connect people who are remote across the country or around the world and help them, the people that are at a distance, still be connected to what's happening in the space and also be able to be included and engage them in creative ways. And so, again, we're all still moving our way into this, but the encouraging part is I've already been a part of some effective hybrid meetings where, again, people that are remote are still feeling like they are a part of what's happening in the space. Of course, it's different than being in that power of congregating in the same space, but still they're able to be included, they're able to engage, and they're able to be a participant, not just a listener from a distance. And yet we're going to have to learn our way into this. So it's going to be really important in the coming years to make sure that we up and raise the bar on how we do these in-person meetings, how we have better remote virtual meetings, and how we embrace and deliver the very best of that hybrid setting. As I've said all along, conversations are the currency for change. Conversations are the currency for change, which is a fancy way of saying if we want anything to change, then we have to be willing to talk about it. We have to be able to gather with our people and, again, not just do reports and updates, but to have conversations about alignment, about the culture we're trying to create, about the strategic objectives we have on our plate, who's doing what, how can we support each other. Those kinds of conversations means that we need to make time, whether you're in that in-person setting, that remote setting, or that hybrid setting, we need to make time to have the right conversation with the right people about the right priority. Keys to having effective and impactful meetings, for whether you're in person, remote, or hybrid, is you got to make sure you're having the right conversation, not the one that's easiest to have, but the right conversation. What is the topic, the development, the thing, that the courageous conversation we know we need to have but we haven't been willing to have? What is the right conversation we need right now? Who are the right people that need to be involved? Is everyone at the table that needs to be at the table? Either that's literally in person or, again, figuratively, like at the table virtually or connected to this hybrid setting. Do we have the right people involved? And then are we focused on the right priority? Are we talking about something that's the 38th priority on our list? Or are we truly focused on those things that are in that top 5 priority that really needs our attention? These are keys. Having the right conversation with the right people at the right priority are keys to alignment, to engagement, to gathering support of each other, and support of whatever the vision is. And then it's critical to stimulating progress. These are the ways that we keep things moving forward, is by making sure that we're having the right conversation with the right people at the right priority. And so conversations are the currency for change. And conversations that are the currency for change are ones in which all at the table, again, literally or figuratively at the table, or on the screen or in the space, are truly pulling in the same direction. That means they want to find solutions. They're eager to find progress together. It isn't a fight, a debate, or a pissing contest. It's actually everyone coming to the call, coming to the room, coming to the table. Everybody coming there with the spirit of, I'm here to find solutions, to help stimulate progress together, to be a part, to be an ambassador for that future culture we're trying to create. And it's not a fight or a debate or a pissing contest. In fact, we're a committed team. We are committed together, and all teams need to learn how to flex these muscles of how we have these meetings and have these conversations that are the currency for change. So the nature of how we even have the conversations, whether again in person, remotely, or hybrid, means that we need to make sure that we're aligning how we think, act, and interact to have important and impactful meetings. So not only being clear on what the purpose of the meeting is, but also clear on that we're coming to the table with the mindset of finding solutions and working collaboratively together, rather than coming to the table for competing for whose idea is the best. That is those are some of the muscles that we need to flex as leaders and teams and organizations every single day. In a recent e-newsletter that I get, I think an e-newsletter or a blog that was written from a friend of mine, friend and fellow author Doug Smith, so who also is a happiness researcher and founder of whitepinemountain.com. You can check the show notes today, whitepinemountain.com. I receive his e-news and love the language and that the work that he does. He and I met years ago when I think he was writing his first book, and so he and I met for a cup of coffee, and we're getting to know each other, and I was adding support to the idea and the things. He's a happiness researcher, gratitude, speaks a lot about gratitude. Really enjoyed his work, and ever since that first cup of coffee, I've enjoyed keeping track of what he's doing and cheering him on and supporting him, and I think he really does excellent work. And so Doug, in one of his most recent e-newsletters or blogs, was talking about the difference between the word discussion and the word dialogue. I have no doubt that there will be time in the near future, I'm not sure when, but where there will be power in congregating again, power in bringing your whole team together, your entire company and organization together in one space for that powerful keynote speech, that discussion that has to happen as a team and entire organization about leadership and culture and mindset. But until then, we are in a virtual world. And so if I can add value to your team, your company, or organization through a virtual keynote speech, or just helping your team and organization have the conversation that's the currency for change that you need to be having internally, I hope you'll track us down and let us know how we can be helpful at jasonvbarger.com. The difference between and the distinction between having discussion and having dialogue. And as soon as I read it, I love this language because really it's a great example of what I refer to as conversations that are the currency for change. Again, how do we have these kind of conversations that are not about competing for whose idea is best, but where we're all coming together to collaborate, to find solutions, and we all want to be a part of the progress that we're having. So in this e-newsletter, Doug Smith was talking about, again, the difference between the distinction between the word discussion and dialogue, and I thought this was fabulous, the way that he was talking about it, because the word discussion is actually a Latin word which means to shake or to smash apart. The word discussion comes from this Latin word with the meaning to shake or to smash apart. And really the kind of definition of a discussion is two or more people that are coming that are coming together that are competing to see whose idea will win. When you think about the language, the art of the debate, anybody who's been a part of the debate team or been in an environment where you've learned the art of debate, then you know that part of a discussion, this idea of, to shake or to smash apart, really at the root meaning, to have a discussion means that two or more people are coming to the table with the idea of competing to see whose idea will win. And so it truly is a debate, a competition. And that really is at the root of what the word discussion means. But the word dialogue, different in the distinction. And yet what's interesting is we seem to use at least I seem to use in the past, these words interchangeably. But now I'm very thoughtful about it because, again, if the distinction is discussion is about coming to the table with the idea of shaking or smashing apart or competing for whose idea is going to win, then that's a much different idea of what I mean by conversations that are the currency for change. And in fact, conversations that are the currency for change are not about the spirit of discussion, but are in the spirit of dialogue. And dialogue is a Greek word that comes from the meaning, quote unquote, meaning flowing through. Dialogue, dia and logos, these Greek words means meaning flowing through. And really the idea is a dialogue is when two or more people come together seeking to build a pool of shared meaning. They're coming together to seek to understand the other person's point of view, and then together are trying to build a pool of shared meaning. And so the two terms, discussion and dialogue, have a totally different spirit and meaning to the word. Discussion is about competing, smashing apart, coming together to win the argument, win the debate. And dialogue is about meaning flowing through everyone and two or more people that are coming together to seek to understand the situation and each other and try to build a pool of shared meaning. Try to together to have meaning and purpose and shared meaning so that then they can seek to understand the situation and find a solution based on that shared meaning. And so as I talk about conversations that are the currency for change, what I'm talking about and those muscles that we need to flex is bringing a spirit to those conversations where we're coming in with the spirit of dialogue rather than discussion. Because when someone comes to the table or comes to that, again, in person or that virtual meeting or that hybrid meeting with the spirit of discussion, then they come to the table with the assumption that there is a right answer and that they have it, that their role in the discussion is to persuade other people. If you come to it with the discussion mindset, then it's about winning. It's combative. You're trying to prove the other side is wrong. You're trying to explain why your perspective is right. You listen to others, but you're only listening to kind of find flaws or make counter arguments. So in our listening, we're really just sitting there trying to come up with what we're going to say back. And really, people that enter this with a kind of a discussion mindset, they value thinking alone, like their own intelligence, kind of their own IQ is what's most important in this kind of debate. And yet that's totally counter to what the most effective leaders, teams, and organizations in the world that are finding alignment, they don't come with this spirit of discussion. They come with a spirit of dialogue. A spirit of dialogue is much different, which means that the assumption is that when we come to that again, literal table or figurative table, in person, remote, or hybrid, meeting, that when you come with the spirit of dialogue for this conversation that's the currency for change, then you begin with the assumption that there are many right answers and that together we will collectively create superior answers and solutions because we're taking advantage of the wisdom of the crowd. More minds and hearts together on the solution are going to give us more perspective and better intelligence so that collectively we can find the multiple right answers and then figure out which one is the direction we need to go. It's about exploring common ground and creating new ground. So it's not about winning. It's about exploring what is the common ground we have and creating that new ground. It's not combative. It's collaborative. We're coming to work towards a common understanding. We may differ in our ideas, absolutely. This doesn't mean that just because you're a part or you come to something with the spirit of dialogue, it doesn't mean you don't have your own opinion. It doesn't mean that you don't differ with your teammates or the relationships in your life. Of course we do. We have different perspectives. But instead of coming with just the combative nature to win those differences, we understand we differ. In fact, we embrace and agree to differ. But therefore, we come with this spirit of, it's important for me to listen so that I can better understand your point of view. We listen to understand rather than just looking for the flaws or the catching somebody in the counter argument. We actually listen to understand, to try to find meaning and value others, to find that kind of agreement of how are we actually seeing this, feeling in this moment, what is the situation we're actually dealing with, so we can find meaning and agreement so that then we can find the solution that we need. And rather than just valuing, intelligence, IQ, people that come to the table with this kind of dialogue spirit to that conversation that's the currency for change, come with this mindset that we value thinking together or collective intelligence, kind of the emotional intelligence side of seeing that we are, our collective intelligence is smarter only than our individual intelligence. So I love this, and I thank Doug Smith for this kind of distinction between these two words, because I think it's fabulous. And again, the work he's doing at whitepinemountain.com that you can learn about is really good stuff, and it really helps us step back and make sure that as we talk about having conversations that are the currency for change, we want to make sure for these impactful meetings that we are teaching and flexing the muscles and embracing this spirit of coming to the table with the spirit of dialogue, not discussion. Dialogue, that we're coming together to seek to understand, to have shared meaning, to find solutions together, and then be clear on where are we going next and how are we going to do it. So, this is not easy stuff. I understand that. These distinctions are really important, and to understand that in our mind, again, if culture is created, it's dynamic, and it's created moment by moment every day by the way we think, act, and interact. How we think about having those impactful meetings, how we think about what it means to enter into a dialogue rather than this discussion, is going to help shape the nature and the culture of the experience that we have, and certainly that the people that have together. So shared meaning and vision is at the heart of this, not debate. And the culture for how we coach, how we teach, how we develop people, and yes, how we develop, how we communicate, and how we work together, and how we have these courageous conversations that are the currency for change. How we do all that matters. The best leaders, teams, and organizations play an enormous role into our future. Think about everything that has happened in the last year and a half in our world, and think about how much, where the problems have lied so much is when we enter into, these tough situations, tough topics, complex issues with the spirit of discussion, trying to win the debate, rather than entering the conversation that's the currency for change with the spirit of dialogue. And so I believe that leaders and teams and organizations, places of work, are already playing an enormous role, but over the next year and next years to come, the future of work is our places of work are going to help us learn how we better engage our minds and hearts in dialogue, not discussion, but dialogue, that's helping us have these conversations that are the currency for change, that gets all of us being able to identify, to seek the obstacles, to understand what the challenges we're facing, and then create shared meaning and a vision forward and a clarity around what are those actions that are needed in the world. And so all of these conversations that are the currency for change and flexing these muscles around the spirit of dialogue are going to help us raise the bar on our own leadership, our own actions in the world, and also help us to be co-creators and participants in creating the culture that we want to be a part of in the space and on the team and in the organization that we have influence on. That the best in the world, the best leaders, teams, and organizations understand this and are investing in this in time, in money, in resources, in energy to make sure we're not just meeting people to death, but we're having impactful, engaging, thoughtful conversations that are the currency for change with the spirit of dialogue, so that as a team, we are better aligned and we're moving ourselves forward. That's just what the best in the world are doing. So as always, I want to leave you with some questions to ponder for this week or this month for you, some questions around this topic. What dialogue, not discussion, but what dialogue needs to happen with the people in your life, the people in your work, the people on your team? What is that dialogue that needs to happen? What dialogue and shared meaning or vision is needed for your road ahead? What shared meaning, what vision is needed for the road ahead? And how are you going to intentionally and strategically engage your people in person, to be thoughtful about when are those times throughout the year that you're going to be strategic about making that effort and investment to have your people in person so that you can have that power of congregating together? So when are you going to do that in person? When are you going to be strategic about doing those engaging and impactful meetings remotely? And when are you going to strategically plan those hybrid meetings in the next 6 months to, whether in person, remote, or hybrid, in order to engage your people? Remember, the best leaders, teams, and cultures on the planet are stimulating progress by the way they recalibrate that thermostat every single day together. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.